Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Good evening, everyone. Today we are going to initiate a Dhamma program or a course based on some Dhamma clarifications. I would like to say it as answering some questions raised by that was prevailing in the Buddhist community. And these questions have been answered by the most venerable Redukane Chandavimala Mahathera in his book called Dhamma Vinicchaya. I think some of you who are Sri Lankans would be familiar, accustomed with this book. And there are 100 questions that are being discussed. And those questions were prevailing in the 1950s in the society of the Buddhists. So what I found was by clarifying these questions, and those questions are very practical and are very much related to our day-to-day lives. So that would enlighten us and shed light upon in certain fields of Buddhist life, so we can clarify our doubts and also uncertainties about certain issues, such as what would happen to the donations that are made to the Sangha, and how could a Sangika Dana could properly be made, and some questions related to karma, and some questions related to the Buddhist literature, and also certain questions that are among the Buddhists about paying respect to Buddha statues and so forth. So the order is given by the Mahathera, so I'll be following according to the order. Some questions will be very imperative, while others will be ordinary ones. But anyway, all of them will give us more knowledge and enable us to clarify other doubts even based on the knowledge that we gather through or gain through these discussions. So if I give a brief introduction to this program. So the book is called Dhamma Vinicchaya. It's written in Sinhalese letters. Dhamma Vinicchaya. Vinicchaya. But in Pali, it would be Dhamma. Dharma becomes Dhamma. Vinicchaya is a Sanskrit word. It becomes Vinicchaya. Vinicchaya means clarifying or solving a certain issue, giving a certain answer or a solution to something. Vinicchaya Sabha was the place where, in courts, where disputes were being settled. Vinicchaya Sabha. Vinicchaya Kara means the person who solved the disputes. So that's a judge. Courts are Vinicchaya Sala. Judges are called Vinicchaya Kara. Dhamma Vinicchaya means the solutions that are given to certain Dhamma issues, like questions that are related to the Dhamma. And Mahathera has organized them in into certain groups. When you read the 100 questions, you are able to understand why he has arranged them in such a order. Anyway, the first few topics will be quite ordinary. Some may have doubts about certain topics and some may not. So it depends on the type of the personality and also the nature of the question. So the first question, that is, I think I have given you a handout, and if you are interested in following these lectures in future, you are very well invited to join a WhatsApp group and a Viber group run by the Institute, and you can join. So all the information regarding the lectures and all the handouts will be distributed in these groups. So you can have your handout. I'll be referring to this handout, and it's been translated. The Sinhalese book has been translated part by part, and now I've given 10 questions. I will not be able to do all the 10 today for sure. And we are going to have this these lectures on every first Sunday of a month, every first Sunday, but only this week because we had we had to do Abhidhamma lesson in the first week of this month. So we postponed it to the second week. So since from the next month, we'll be doing the program on every first week, every Sunday at 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Sri Lankan time. The first question. So if you are, I'm referring to the handout that I have given. If anyone didn't get the handout, I kindly request Udyani Unantana to post this, so share this in the chat box so others can download it. Did the Buddha make a rule or request that his disciples must make statues of him and worship them? Because sometimes on those days in 1950s, there was a certain sect emerged in Sri Lanka refuting all the ideas of paying respect to Buddha statue, because Buddha statue is something made out of clay or something made out of some material, and this has no specific living essence, and this has no relationship with the Buddha. It made sense to most of the people that paying respect to the Buddha's relics, because they belong to his body parts, and also paying respect to the Bodhi tree under which he got enlightened, made sense to many because they have some kind of a relationship with the actual Buddha. But when it comes to a Buddha statue, which is made out of some clay taken from the earth, or a Buddha statue in these days, it has no whatsoever relationship with the actual Buddha. So if so, what is the purpose of paying respect to a Buddha statue? First of all, the first question that he's asking is, did the Buddha made any such request that Buddha statues of him should be made? So in the Tipitaka, we don't see such a request or such an order given by him. Obviously, that is Mahathera's opinion. A person who is quite humble and who has less desires, and especially someone who has fully eradicated the desires, would not prefer, would not suggest others to make a statue of him. That's obvious. That's an obvious thing. Even a monk who has less desires would not, if someone makes a statue, there's a different case. But we would not ask someone to do so, because if you are telling someone to make a statue of yours, it shows that there's some kind of a expectation of veneration, of popularity. A Buddha, someone who has completely eradicated all the defilements related to greed and conceit, would never request a person to make such a statue, because it's against their ethics. It's against their actual mindset. But it is true that by making a Buddha statue and paying respect to the Buddha, to that statue, one can accumulate great merits. But the first question the Mahathera is asking, did the Buddha make a rule or request that his disciples must make statues of him and worship them? The clear answer is no. The clear answer is no. So before we read the handout, Mahathera had given a very nice story which happened in the Buddha's time, during the Buddha's time. Once when the Buddha was, because every early morning, he normally investigates the world, check the living beings, and find out if there is anyone who to whom that he could preach Dhamma and rescue from the samsara, or give some relief in the samsara. So at that time, one morning, he saw a lady of a low caste. In Pali, they were called Chandalas, Chandalis. In the Sri Lankan society also, quite till recent time, there were some castes called Chandalas. Mostly they are called outcasts. So a lower caste lady, an old lady, a feeble lady who was about to die, outcast lady who was about to die, came into the Buddha's vision. And he saw that this lady was about to die today itself, that day itself, and was going to be born in the great hell. In the great hell. But there was a possibility. Buddha saw the possibility. That's the magnificence or the benefit of having a Buddha, because he can see if a certain karma could be prevented or not. He can see the possibilities of the good side and also of the bad side. So therefore, then he saw that it's possible that this person, that karma is preventable. You could prevent that karma. So if that lady at least pay respect or homage to the Buddha, she would be able to making that a karma proximate to the death, closer to the death. We call it asana karmas. So she will be able to be born in a divine realm. So what happened was, with the Mahasangha, while he was going for Pindapat in the early morning, he went took a road, took a path that led towards where the lady was living. And on the way, while he was searching for alms, he met the lady face to face. She was coming towards the Buddha, and Buddha was coming with the Mahasangha. Then they were facing each other. So suddenly the lady stopped, and Buddha also stopped. Buddha stopped in front of her, and the lady also stopped, because he was a very respected person in the society, a person who has abandoned the household life. Actually, he abandoned his kingship that was awaiting him, and also a good family life, and abandoned the household life in his prime youth. And he was of a good appearance as well. So he stood in front, and the lady obviously had heard about him, and she was very respectful, but she didn't know what to do with him. So she just kept looking at him. At that time, Moggallana read the Buddha's mind, understood what the Buddha was thinking. Buddha was expecting her to worship her. For what reason? Is it to gain some respect from an outcast lady? No, obviously not. He is a person who's been venerated, respected even by the kings, even by the emperors who were controlling, who was ruling the countries of his era. So there's nothing that he could gain from a worship done by an outcast lady, and especially an old lady who was about to die today. So, but his intention was that she could, by respecting him, she could accumulate a great merit that would take her to a divine destination, divine realm, rather than falling into the great hell. So Moggallana read his intentions and asked the lady to pay respect to the Buddha. So following his orders, I think she was not of very high intellect, it seems like, and she paid homage to the Buddha. And in that day, she died, and she was born in a divine realm. And while Moggallana was traveling in the divine realms, if my memory was correct, he met her, and this story was said to him. And so what Mahathera's argument is, now even on that occasion, he didn't ask the lady to pay respect to him. So even in such an occasion, he didn't ask her to pay respect to him. So how could he make a rule or a request that his statues would be made and paid respect at? So it's not something a Buddha would do. It's also obvious in some sutras, and also in the Vinaya, Buddha has clearly mentioned Buddha deserves veneration. Buddha deserves veneration, and Buddha is a person who deserves veneration not only from humans but also from devas and brahmas, because obviously he has reached the culmination of wisdom and the psychic powers, and he deserves that. He has eradicated all the defilements, including the latent habitual tendencies, which we call vasana. But there is no such state. Maybe there are one or two on special occasion that he's asking people to pay respect to him, but normally he doesn't do that. He doesn't do that. So therefore, Mahathera is of the argument that Buddha has never made such a request, but he didn't deny, or he didn't say that not to make any statues. For example, when the Mahaparinibbana was about to happen, Venerable Ananda, who was struck by great grief, came to him and asked, how should we arrange your funeral rituals? How to make the pyre and what sort of celebrations or respect that we should make. At that time, Buddha said, you don't need to bother about that. You just worry about your own practice. The lay people would take care of it. It's a duty of the lay people to honor the Buddha's body. Then he asked, how should they respect the Buddha's body? And he said, Buddha's body as the Tathagatas, because that's the ritual, how the Tathagata's body should be treated. He said it should be treated like it should be treated like the body of a Chakravarti. And how should it be done? Then he explained the procedure for that. So because it was asked, the question was asked. So likewise, Buddha is not a person who would arrange or who would say to others to venerate him, because he has completely eradicated the desires of receiving respect. He has eradicated the desires of receiving respect. So the answer for this question is no. So we shall read this handout and then we'll try to explain the specific points. The Buddha did not make any rule or request that his disciples create statues of him and worship them. Noble beings like the Buddha do not have the desire to receive veneration from others. Those who have such desires are usually influenced by defilements and selfish ideas. One day in the early morning, the Buddha was observing the world to see whom he could help. He saw an old lady in Rajagaha who was about to die and be reborn in hell. To help her, the Tathagata went into the city of Rajagaha in search of alms. His objective was to inspire the old lady to pay him respect and accumulate great merit, leading her to a blissful destination after death. The Tathagata met the old woman who was walking with the help of a stick. She was very feeble. He stopped in front of her but did not ask her to pay respect to him or perform a meritorious deed. At that moment, Moggallana Thera, knowing the Buddha's intentions, recited the following verse to encourage the old woman to pay respect to the Tathagata. Chandhali vande padani gotamassa yasassino taveva nukampaya attasi simuttamo. Chandhali, the outcast lady, please pay respect at the feet of Gotama, who has high fame. Taveva anukampaya attasi uttamo. This great sage stood here, stopped walking, having compassion towards you, to help you. Abhippasadehi manang arahattam hitadini kippam panjalika vande parittang tava jivitang. May you have gladness or faith or the feeling of faith towards Arahantas who have eradicated defilements and who does not change based on the objects, Tadini. Kippang Panjalika Vanda, may you pay respect to him quickly. Parittan Tava Jivitang, you have very short lifespan left. The old woman paid respect to the Buddha, died on the same day, and was reborn in the divine realm. See appendix for the full story. I have given you the appendix, but it's in Pali actually, because this would be a book also would be given to monks to study in our institute, so they can read their Pali. So that's why I have given the Pali story. The Buddha did not accept meals offered by the Brahmins, Kasi Bharadwaja and Sundarika Bharadwaja, because he had already delivered Dhamma verses to them before the offering. So there are few occasions in which the Buddha had preached the Dhamma first, and while they got inspired by the Buddha's preaching, they invited or offered them the meals. So by that time, Buddha normally rejects it, because it may amount, but it's in terms of the sila or in terms of Vinaya, Bhikkhu Vinaya, that's not an issue. I may preach a Dhamma and he may be pleased about me and do some offering. I have the full right to accept that. But normally Buddhas don't do it with regard to meals. If they happen to preach a certain Dhamma and inspire the person, and having inspired, if the person tries to offer some meal to him, he normally rejects it. And he says to throw it away because that had been dedicated to the Buddha already. So therefore, and he even rejected the meals. Given this, how could the Buddha make a rule or request for others to create statues and worship him when he had not even asked others to pay respect to him? He would never do so. So the custom of making Buddha statues did not originate from the Buddha himself. It is not due to an instruction or due to an order or a rule made by the Buddha. Although the Buddha did not ask for respect or veneration, he would accept them from pious devotees along with their offerings. When people have gathered and wanted to offer him, he would not reject it, because it's a good gesture for them to accumulate great merit of paying respect to such a venerated or venerable person. And he even would praise that if someone pays respect to him, that the person would gain abundance of merit, because that's something which is actual in the reality. So out of compassion, he would do that. But there are some instances. There's one instance in a very special sutra. I forgot the name of the sutra actually. That was uttered to Venerable Nagita or some of the attendants when people gathered to the monastery where Buddha's residence, and they were going to offer. They have brought lots of gifts, and also they were ready to praise the Buddha, and they requested the attendant monk, and he came and said, the Buddha, people are awaiting outside and they are looking forward to pay respect to you and make a lot of offerings. Then he rejected it. He said, may not the labha sakkara, the gain and the praise disturb my mind. Then the attendant kept on saying, no, you have already eradicated defilement. So it's not an issue. It's unlike a putujana person, you are not going to be affected by these offerings. But still he said, no, may it not disturb my mind. And he said, the Buddhas appear into the world like after a long time. You are very rare. It's very seldom that Buddhas appear. So in such occasion, may the Buddha, the Blessed One, give an opportunity for the people to accumulate these merit by offerings. So you may not be of need of these requisites, but give them at least an opportunity to offer them. And he said, no, still not. He rejected it. So this sutta is a very, very significant sutta for monks, showing that the Buddha rejected the offerings that were going to be made. And it gave us, especially the monks, a very good sign that how did the Buddha treated these labha sakkara. Labha sakkara are the gain and the respect that we get from other people. Although the Buddha did not ask for respect or veneration, he would accept them from pious devotees along with their offerings. Therefore, beings with faith who recognized the Buddha's supreme qualities paid respect and made offerings to him both while he was alive and after after he had attained parinibbana. So Mahathera's answer is no. Buddha did not make any such request or rule of making Buddha statues. If you have any questions, you can ask it in the Q&A session after I have given the clarifications. Then the second question: how can one pay respect and venerate the Buddha who has attained parinibbana? There's another question. How could we pay respect to a person who has died, or the Buddha who has attained parinibbana? Because now a non-arahant, after dying, he would be born in some other place. But an arahant has no rebirth, and his nama-rupa process has completely extinguished. So there's no remnants of nama-rupa in any realm remaining related to him. Remnants means he's not been born again, right? His body parts may remain, but his life is not continuing anymore. And that because by the attainment of arahantship, here indicate the possibilities of a rebirth. So how could we make veneration to a person who has already died or who has already attained parinibbana? So this is a thing that first we need to clarify. So in order to understand why Buddha statues are relevant, why it is okay to pay respect to Buddha statues, first we should know what is the process going in our minds while we pay respect to someone who has already passed away. Now, our minds Now, for example, if we take this as the mind, chitta and chetasikas are also there. Chetasikas. This chitta always, according to Buddhist philosophy, chitta arises always taking an object. This is the object, for example. This I may write as consciousness. Always the mind focuses at an object. In Western philosophy, we call this intentionality. It's a very technical term. Some philosophers believe that not all the consciousness do not need an object. For example, moods are not related to any object according to them. But some philosophers think that every consciousness, all the time, consciousness is related to a certain object. That's called the intentionality in philosophy. There's nothing related with the intention in that term. Buddhism falls into this category because we believe every consciousness has an object. Consciousness cannot arise without taking object, as if a feeble man cannot stand up on its own, on his own, without the help of a stick. So every consciousness has an object. This object could be of 3 periods. It could be a past one, it could be a present one, it even could be a future one. Even could be a future one. And also we should know this object is felt to the mind in a certain way. This object is felt to the mind. The way it is felt is called the chitta nimitta. Nimitta. These words are given in some sub-commentaries, and sometimes it's referred to as akara. Akara, the way the object is taken by the mind. The way the object is taken by the mind. Sometimes they may differ. They may differ. For example, we may have a misunderstanding about someone who is coming towards us. We may think he's our friend while an unknown person is coming. And also we have misperceptions. Now, according to Buddha's teachings, the actual objects in the outside world are non-self. They don't have any self. But we take them as a self. They are normally impermanent, but sometimes we take them as permanent, or at least to be permanent to a certain amount of time. So we have wrong perceptions. While they beget suffering, they cause suffering, we take them as blissful. So all the wrong though these are the wrong perception. This is not a chetasika, this is not the sanya. This is the idea of them, how the object is taken, is being taken, how the object is considered. Sometimes in vipassana meditation, we take it as it is, while when the objects of the reality are non-self, we take them as non-self. As objects of realities are impermanent, we take them as impermanent. While they are, as they are suffering or they cause suffering, we take them as something causing suffering. So in vipassana meditation, we try to match these two. So we try to live according to the reality. But in other occasions, we have certain opinions, or sometimes most of the times we have different opinions to that of the reality. So normally panyati, the object of panyati comes here, but sometimes it can be a paramatta nimitta as well if you are taking the object as it is. Okay, I'm not going into detail to talk about this because this is not an Abhidhamma lesson. So what happens is this chitta has the capacity to take an object that is actually present, that is obvious to us. It is able to take an object that is actually present. But it is also possible, according to Buddhist teachings, a chitta can take a past and a future object. What is a past object? Past doesn't refer to the time here. It's referred to the object itself. Past, present, future in Pali, though in English it refers to a time, an abstract concept, which is called time. Here, past, present, future, in terms of Buddhist philosophy, refers to things that were in certain periods. According to Buddhism, time doesn't exist. Time is something that is felt to the mind, and it's not an ultimate entity or a reality. Even some philosophers, Western philosophers, think there is nothing called time. It's something that is created by mind. But some physicians, most of the physicians, physics believe time as the 4th dimension. Okay, we're not going to talk about the idea of time here. I'm just going to explain what Buddhism says, Theravada Buddhism says. Time is just a concept created in the mind or happen to be felt with by the mind, seen the processes, how the mind and matter works, seen these processes, taking the 2 points of a certain process, and we get the idea of time. The time is a concept according to Theravada teachings. So, but still, then the realities are termed as past, present, future. What is the definition? If a reality has arisen and passed away, it has arisen, it was not there before, it was there, passed away, and no more. If a certain reality has already passed away, that is a past reality. If something has passed away, P-A-S-S-E-D, passed away, then that reality is a past reality. Then present means something that has arisen but haven't passed away yet. It's existing but not passed away yet. Has not passed away yet. Then what is a future reality? Future reality is something that has not arisen. That has not arisen yet. So the mind is capable of taking these two objects as well. Taking the present is obvious. It's clear. It's clear means most of the way. You can still argue on this. How is the mind capable of going into this different realm of rupas or namas, and what is that capacity of cognition and so forth? These are very abstract topics that that are beyond our scope in this lesson. Past and future. How could the mind take past and future? I would like to remind that this idea of knowing the past and future led to the emergence of a separate Buddhist sect called Sarvastivadins. Sarvastivadins, Sarva Asti. Sarva means all, Asti means existing. So they considered, since it is very obvious that we can know the past, future, and the present, all three realities pertaining to all three times. So they came to the idea, if past can be known, that past must be existing in a certain form. It may not be visible to us as the present. It is not obvious to us as present. But since it is existing in one way or another, that's why we are capable of knowing the past. And sometimes we do see future with psychic powers and also in dreams sometimes. So if future can be felt or future can be known, on rare occasions at least, it means future is also existing in some form. So what happens is, the realities, they go through the time. When they come to the present, they manifest in a way that can be felt with our ordinary senses, like the 5 senses and so forth. But when they pass away, they are still existing in a certain form. So sometimes they can be known or recalled by our minds in the 6th sense of the mind. So, but the Theravadians, they have argued on this in the Kathavattu. They have said, no, past and future doesn't exist according to Buddha's teachings, because Buddha has said, Yadati-tang pahinantang, what is past is completely gone, it has vanished. Appattancha anagatan, the future has not come. So past and future should not be existing in what way? In any of the ways. That was their argument. But Theravadins haven't given us given a specific way or specific reason why Chitta could take past and future. It seems like that they have taken it as a capacity of the Chitta. The Chitta has the attribute, has the capacity to know a reality that has already vanished, and also to know something that is about to arise in some cases. So anyway, so Chitta has the capacity, according to Theravada, Chitta has the capacity to know something which has already passed away. Something which has already passed away. So then there are few ways of cognition. For example, when we are seeing something with our eyes, it's a direct experience. It's a direct experience, and we don't need any evidences to prove it as well. For example, if I'm seeing something, that's self-evident. You don't need any proof for that. According to skeptics, this cannot be proven. because in the end you go into circular argument. I'm not going to talk about that. According to skeptics, you cannot prove it with evidences even while you're experiencing something with your senses at the present moment. But normally we take it for granted, and we would normally say, while we are now, for example, you are looking at this lecture through your Zoom or whatever device that you're using. So you're self-evident about it. We take it as an exact experience that we are having, and that experience is very, very clear and vivid. And also we can recall something that we experienced in our past. For example, sometimes we'll be able to recall some incident which happened few minutes ago, or something that happened few months ago, sometimes few days ago, few years ago. We'll not be able to recall everything, but at least certain incidents that our mind can recall or catch. Now, so that is also self-evident. I myself, or the person knows, there is something called false memory. Yeah, that's something it can happen, but in most of the cases, we know that we can recall something that happens to us. So that's why we can even give this as evidence in quotes that I experienced, or I did this, I saw this, and so forth. So these are the direct experiences that we have. Now think about, or think about this scenario. Thinking about something that is not at your presence. For instance, if most of you have seen the Mahacheti in Anuradhapura, or think about Shwedagon Pagoda, or whatever, which is not in front of you at the moment. If you think about it at the moment, if you think about it, picture would appear in your mind. You will see a certain picture in most of the cases, resembling to what you have seen in a picture, or the last time you saw it. If you are recalling your experience, how you saw it last time, that's a different case, because that is something of your first-hand experience, that you are recalling what you have seen, what you experienced. That's a different case. I'm talking about thinking about the Mahacheti at this moment. I just want to pay respect to Mahacheti. So I think about Mahacheti and pay respect to that. So according to Theravada teaching, that's the point here. My mind is taking the present Mahacheti that is existing at this moment. My object is the present Mahacheti, present Shwedagon Pagoda. It may be felt as something that you have seen. So it may be felt, it was known to the mind through an object that you have seen, but the actual object is the present object that is over there. The present object. So I'll repeat again. If I'm paying respect to Mahacheti from here, even though its color has changed, for example, its color has changed, I recall it, I pay respect to it. Now, obviously, I will feel it as white while the color has changed, actually. So according to Theravada teachings, my object of reference, actual object, is the Mahacheti which is present. But I may think about it in a way that I have seen it, maybe in a picture or maybe with your first-hand experience. When it comes to karma, what matters is this, not this. I'll give another example for this. For instance, I'm telling about a monk whom I met in Burma, someone whom you have not seen, and I start to accuse him or criticize him. And then you also join with me and criticize the person. And obviously, when I'm relating the story to you, a certain image may appear in your mind, and because you'll be also having a mental image while I'm talking about this story, and you will also, for example, I'm telling something a bad thing that the person has done, or something that I doubted. So then what happened? Now you had an image. For example, when I say about Burmese monk, you had a certain image of a white monk, or a certain appearance of Burmese, and so forth. And next day, unfortunately, I found out that the person has already attained arahantship, and we have accused, while the time we were accusing, few months ago, he has attained arahantship, and I had a complete misperception about his behavior. So I come and tell, oh, there is something serious has happened. We both have accused, okay, think that both of us have said him the fool. We have said those words. So we have said the words fools. I would say that was a great mistake. That person was an arahant and I had a misunderstanding. So then I would feel like I have accused an arahant and I do an apology to him. I have to I have to ask for apologies. Because otherwise it's going to create a huge problem for my sansaric lives. Then I show an actual picture of the person to you. Now imagine you had a certain picture while I was relating about a white, fair color monk. But this monk happens to be a traditional Burmese person who is quite a little bit darker, and which has no resemblance with your image at all. Person whom you thought was different and the person I'm showing is completely different, because you had a different mind image from what I did. Because when I'm talking about a story, always now think about the expeditions made by the Emperor Alexander. We would all have different images going through our minds, right? Based on our experiences when we are listening to such a story. Now, that person had a certain mental image, while when it was not resembling to the actual person. So when I showed him the actual photo, you would say, oh, come on. I had a person of a fair color. I have the image of a fair color person, and you are showing someone who is a darker person than this. So that is the person I accuse, not this person. If you bring such an argument, what would be the answer? I would say no. You cannot get rid of that like that. You cannot get rid of the karma like that, because both of us were referring to the same person. You told him a fool to whom I was referring. So we were both in the same discussion and we were accusing the same person. It was not a misunderstanding. For example, if I misspelled a noun, or misspelled a name, or if you have understood someone else, for example, you thought that is this person, and while I was telling a different person, then there is a mismatch. But you have no idea about whom I was talking, and I was referring to a particular person, and you had no misunderstanding about different. So you are referring to that same person with your mind, but with a different mental image. Because my mental image was mostly resembling the person because I have seen him, but you had a different mental image. If you start to say, no, my mental image was different from whom you are showing, so I have not accumulated Ariyupavada or accusing an Arahant. No, you will not be free from that. What is the reason? Both of us were having the same object of reference. This is the object of reference. This is the mental image. So when it comes to the karmas, what matters is the object of reference, not the mental image. Even you have taken it with a different mental image, as long as we were referring to the same object of reference or object, then the karma, we are accumulating the karma based on the natures of this object. So that's what happened with the present objects. Now think about a past person. Now we all believe that the Buddha existed, and there are historical evidences also that he existed, and he was born in Nepal, and he lived in India, obviously not in Sri Lanka, as some would say. And so he is a person who actually lived. So there was a Buddha. I have listened to an article that one person was arguing Buddha was a mythical story, but it doesn't have much ground. Obviously, there was a person whom we call the Buddha, and there are lots of evidences for that as well. So we know now we are referring to the Buddha. None of us have seen the Buddha. We don't know his actual appearance. We have just listened to words written in books, and none of us have witnessed him. Maybe in samsara we have witnessed, but now none of us recall. None of us remember. We cannot imagine actually. But when we refer to the Buddha, he appears to our mind in a way, in most of the cases, the mental image would resemble to a Buddha statue which we adore or which we like most. Normally, the Buddha statue we like the most comes to our mind. So, through that image, we are referring to the actual Buddha. Now, someone, for example, someone accuses the Buddha with bad words. Then we say, go and ask for apology from the Buddha, or take apology, ask for apologies because you have accused the Buddha. Then he would say, no, I remembered the Buddha, or I recall the Buddha when I was accusing him. What came to my mind was a Buddha statue whom I pay respect to, or whom something which I've seen. And this Buddha statue is never going to be the same with the actual Buddha. He's referring to the object of mental object. If he starts to argue with us that he has not accumulated any demerit by accusing the actual Buddha, his argument is his mental image is not going to match with the actual Buddha who lived 2,500 years ago, we would dismiss his argument saying, no, you were referring to the actual Buddha who existed. Even though his Nama Rupas have passed away, they did exist 2,500 years ago in India. They did exist. So therefore, our mind was having the actual reference of the Buddha. So this is how, if akusalas can be accumulated by accusing the Buddha, even while we have not seen him actually, we are contemplating him based on the pictures that we have seen, which are drawn by artists or made by sculptors. So what we are not actually seeing him, but we cannot get rid of the demerit. In the same way, if we pay respect to the Buddha who has passed away, our mind, we may be thinking about him based on an image that we have gathered or accumulated through our experiences, but we are referring to the actual Buddha. Therefore, referring or paying respect to the actual Buddha who has passed away, we can accumulate great merit. So that's the Abhidhamma behind this. That's how the mind works behind this. So this, when we are paying respect to the actual Mahacheti or Shwedagon Pagoda, or whatever monument at present, our object of reference is that actual object, that actual monument we are paying respect at. It may appear to us in a way that we have seen it before, or a picture that we are familiar with, but still our object of reference is the actual object that is existing at this moment. In the same way, when you are paying respect to someone who has passed away, our object of reference was those mind and matter that existed. Those were the Buddhas when it comes to paying respect to the Buddha. So we get the merit of paying respect to a Buddha. So that's why it is mentioned in Theravada tradition. If you can have there is a difference, but when we normally if we happen to meet the Buddha in person, then the feelings would be different. Normally, when we think about him, it's very difficult to have that same feeling as if we have seen the Buddha in person. So, but if we are capable of having that similar feeling, we are able to get a similar result. That's how it's been explained in Theravada teachings. So that's how the mechanism behind paying respect to someone who is not existing. Then someone can ask the question about future. When it comes to future, things get complicated. I'm not going to touch upon that because even I myself will not be able to give you definitive answers when it comes to certain objects about the future. So we'll just not touch upon that. So how can one pay respect and veneration to the Buddha who has attained parinibbana? This is the mechanism, Abhidhammic mechanism behind such veneration. It is customary for civilized humans. Now Mahathera is talking about some practical ways that this has been done. It is customary for civilized humans to respect virtuous people who have passed away. To honor these virtuous individuals, people often establish gravestones, monuments, and statues and pay respect to these memorials, sometimes offering flower bouquets. Similarly, pious Buddhists show respect to the Buddha who has attained parinibbana through these same practices. What is the practice? They make statues, they make gravestones, they make memorials, and pay respect by offering flowers and so forth. That's done normally in our society. So Buddhists also follow the same practice. Monuments, statues, and structures created in honor of noble beings such as the Buddha are called chaitya. Chaitya, this is a Pali word that you should know. Chaitya. Chaitya are the things, structures that are created to honor beings like the Buddha and so forth. These memorials are not made because the virtuous ones have asked for them. That's also something we discussed in the previous question. So he's also elaborating some facts related to that. For example, the statue of Mahatma Gandhi was not made at his request, nor was the statue of Vihara Mahadevi in Vihara Mahadevi Park in Sri Lanka. The Sri Lankans may know that because this Vihara Mahadevi is the mother of King Duttagavani. And then Mahathera keeps on, continues. Likewise, the statues of Anagarika Dharmapala or Prime Minister D.S. Senanayake of Sri Lanka were not created because they requested or ordered them. In the same way, Buddhists make statues of the Buddha not because he requested or ordered them to do so. However, this custom of creating memorials for various individuals and paying respect to them was not rejected by the Buddha. Rather, it was accepted by him. He accepted this custom. He accepted means he said that a Buddha, a Pacceka Buddha, Arahant, and a Chakravarti deserves a Chaitya, deserves such memorials. He didn't talk about creating Buddha statues, but Chaityas, yes. Stupas, memorials, pagodas can be made. Tupa Araha Puggala. He appreciated this. He didn't request to make anything for him, but he requested this custom. He acknowledged this custom. Threefold Chaitya. In those days, people who had faith in the Buddha and respected him would visit Jetavana Rama to honor him. However, when Buddha was traveling to different regions to preach Dhamma, these various visitors would leave flowers and aromatic offerings in front of his kuti and then return home without experiencing much joy from the offerings, because Buddha didn't stay in one place. He used to travel in various districts and countries preaching the Dhamma which he founded. So the people in Savatthi used to visit these Jetavana monas because that was his base location where he used to stay the most of the time. So people used to visit him in Jetavana, but sometimes when he had gone for traveling or to preach Dhamma, normally they bring flowers and aromatic stuff to offer him. So on such occasions, they found that the Buddha is missing. So what they did was they kept it in front of his Gandhakuti. Gandhakuti means his kuti, his residence, and went back. And they didn't find much pleasure in it. The rich man Anathapindika saw this issue. So when Venerable Ananda and the Buddha had returned, he approached Venerable Ananda and asked, is it possible that we could establish a certain structure in Jetavana on behalf of Buddha, so people could at least pay respect and they will have some feeling that they have paid respect to the Buddha. So that was the request Anathapindika was making. So that's a story Mahathera has written also. Recognizing this, the wealthy Anathapindika approached Venerable Ananda when the Buddha had returned to the Jetavana monastery and said, Venerable Sir, when the Tathagata is away, this monastery becomes a place without refuge for those who come here. There is no place for the devotees to offer the flowers and aromatic items they bring. Please convey this to the Tathagata and ask if it is possible to establish a respectable monument here. Venerable Ananda, accepting Anathapindika's request, approached the Buddha and asked, instead of asking, shall we establish a memorial or a respectable monument, he just went and asked, this was a Venerable Sir, how many types of Chaityas are there? The Blessed One, how many types of Chaityas are there? The Buddha replied, Ananda, there are 3 types of Chaityas. 3 types of Chaityas. Venerable Ananda further inquired, what are they, Venerable Sir? The Buddha explained, Ananda, the three types of Chaitiyas are called Saririka, Paribhogika, and Uddesika. These are the three: Saririka, Paribhogika, and Uddesika. Saririka. So I'll explain them later, right? To give a brief introduction, Saririka are the body parts of the Buddha, parts of the body. Paribhogika is something used by the Buddha. It can be his robe, or the beds or chairs that were used by him, his kuti, residence, and also the Bodhi tree under which he spent 1 week after the enlightenment, and also under which he got the enlightenment, attained the enlightenment. Uddesika are the remaining structures that can be structures or pictures, whatever sign that can be used in terms of like referring to the Buddha. Referring to the Buddha. It could be a depicting or a picture, or it can be some other sign which doesn't contain, or some other object which doesn't contain body parts or something that he has used. We will come to that explanation. And he said there are three. Venerable Ananda then asked, Venerable Sir, is it possible to make Chaitiyas while you are alive? The Buddha clarified, Ananda, it is not possible to create Saririka Chaitya while the Tathagata is alive. This can only be done after Tathagata has attained Parinibbana, because you cannot extract body parts from his body while he is alive, obviously. But there is one Saririka body part that could be taken and paid respect while he was alive. That those are the hair relics. Hair relics. So according to the story of which we find in the Mahavagga, when the Tapassu and Ballikas made the request after going for refuge under the Buddha and Dhamma, so they said, is there something a respectable object that we can have, so we can pay respect instead of, because we'll not be able to meet you again, so is there a thing that we can pay respect at? Then he rubbed his hair and gave 8 strings of hair. Later on, both of them visited back Buddha, and one became a monk and attained arahantship, and one attained sotapannahood. And the Myanmar people believe that both of them came to Myanmar, and those hair relics are enshrined in the great Shwedagon Pagoda. In Sri Lanka, the history says they came to the eastern region, and they built the stupa enshrining 8 relics in which is called Girihandu Sai. So there are different stories behind this incident. So anyway, and also in Sri Lankan chronicles, we have a story of Buddha giving some hair relics to a divine being called Sumana Saman. That is actually Sumana Devaraja. In Sinhalese, we call Sumana Saman. Sumana and Saman are the same words. Sumana is the Pali word, while Saman is the Sinhalese word. So Sumana Devaraja, he offered them to the Sumana, and he built the Mayangana Stupa in Sri Lanka, enshrining enshrining some hair relics. So anyway, there is an incident of, in the Tipitaka it is mentioned that he gave the hair relics to the Tapassu and Ballikas. So normally he was actually referring to the bones, and so actually he was referring to the bones. So you cannot extract bones from his body while he's alive. The Uddesika Chaitya does not contain either Saririka or Paribhogika objects. Uddesika Chaitya is just a monument or an object that doesn't contain any body parts or something that he has used. A monument becomes a Uddesika Chaitya simply by being honored with devout mind. Okay. By considering, if this is a Uddesika, for example, if this is a kind of a monument, if we think as this resembles or this refers to the Buddha, if my mind, if I start to respect this as the Buddha, for example, this as a sign of referring to the Buddha, then this becomes Uddesika. But if that Uddesika contains some relics or an object that he used, then this becomes Saririka and Paribhogika accordingly. right? So for example, think about a pagoda, a stupa that we make. This is just a monument. This is just a monument. In Myanmar, we have this kind of pagodas, right? So these are just monuments. They have no specific value in veneration, receiving, because they are just made out of bricks. Our houses are made out of bricks. These pagodas are made out of bricks. So why they become so sacred? One reason, if you enshrine the relics, then they become saririka chaitiyas. They are enshrining or they are covering certain relics. So we are paying respect to the relics actually, with the stupa with the relic chamber. If you have enshrined, for example, according to the chronicles of Sri Lanka, there is a stupa in which the Buddha's belt is enshrined. Buddha's patra is the ball is being enshrined. So things that he used, so they become paribhogika chaitiyas. But if someone is unable to find relics, these monuments are just monuments. But if the person starts to respect it as if respecting the Buddha and consider these as the Buddha, then this becomes uddesika. So that is what is mentioned here. A monument becomes an uddesika chaitya simply by being honored with a devout mind. If we start to respect a certain monument and consider it as the Buddha, then it becomes an uddesika chaitya. The Mahabodhi tree under which the Tathagata sat is considered the paribhogika chaitya. It's not only the paribhogika chaitya, it's not the only paribhogika chaitya. His chairs, beds, robes, all are paribhogika chaityas. Anything that he has used. So it is considered a paribhogika chaitya, the Bodhi tree, both while the Tathagata is alive and even after he has attained parinibbana. Both while he is alive and he has attained the parinibbana. So you cannot have saririka chaitya. He said you cannot have saririka chaitya while I'm alive. And uddesika chaitya is something that doesn't contain paribhogika or saririka dhatus. And paribhogika is the Bodhi tree under which he sat and any other object that he has used. This story is not mentioned in the Tipitaka, but can be found in the background story of the Kalinga Bodhi Jataka in the commentary. The following are the Pali sentences mentioned in the Jataka. Ananda, saririka na sakka katong, it's not possible to make saririka chaitiyas while I'm alive. Tanhi buddhanang parinibbana kale hoti, after the parinibbana, you can have saririka chaitiyas. Uddesikang avattukang, uddesika doesn't contain avattukang, not avattu, avattukang. It doesn't contain either saririka or paribhogika objects. Mamayana mattameva hoti is just a it's just by the consideration that these resembles Buddha, they refer to Buddha, then they become uddesika. Buddhehi parimbuto, Buddhehi paributho, used by the Buddhas. Mahabodhirukho, Buddhesu darante supi, chetyameva. Buddhesu darante supi, chetyameva. So the Bodhirukha, the Bodhi tree, even while the Buddha is alive, becomes a paribhogika chaitya. The phrase now he is referring to how could one pay respect to the Buddha. So we can pay respect to a Buddha through these three things. That's what he's mentioning. Even at the absence of these three, still you can pay respect to the Buddha. But normally they gives us some kind of a feeling that we are paying respect to the Buddha. So having such monuments are very valuable because we can get the idea of the Buddha by respecting such physical objects. So relics, these are the relics. This is the Bodhi tree or any other object that he used. Then uddesika are the monuments that doesn't contain relics or anything that he has used. So there was an argument on those days when the Mahathera was alive. Some considered now these uddesikas are the ones who doesn't contain relics or something that the Buddha has used. Now think about the Buddha statue. Buddha statue is a uddesika chaitya. It doesn't contain relics normally. Now pagodas without relics are uddesika chaityas. So normally these are, and sometimes in ancient days, olden days, they used to draw Buddha statues. instead of Buddha statues, sorry, they used to depict the Buddha in the sign of a Dhammachakra, wheel of Dhamma. Sometimes Buddha's chair was drawn. They were afraid to draw the Buddha's figure because maybe they must have considered as a disrespect, because we are unable to draw his figure as it is. Right? We'll always draw something inferior to his actual figure. So it makes sense. And these days we draw the Buddha's picture. So these are all uddesikas, because they don't contain saririka or paribhogika chaitiyas. So what happens is, some argued that there is no such a thing called uddesika chaitya in the literature. It cannot be referring to a Buddha statue or a physical object. It's just the consideration itself. Just the contemplation of the Buddha's attributes is the uddesika chaitya. That was their argument. So we'll look into this argument. The phrase uddesikang avattukang mamayana mattamev hoti can be challenging to understand. There has been some debate over whether it is appropriate to pay respect to Buddha statues based on this statement. When investigating the meaning of such brief statements, it is important to look at the background story. Additionally, one should examine how the same concept is explained in commentaries, sub-commentaries, and other literary sources of the tradition. It is also essential to consider how ancient teachers of the tradition have approached this matter. So we have to look at the background story, how this thing is being discussed in other books, commentaries, sub-commentaries, and other sources of literature, and how the tradition has dealt with this. That's also a very important point. If one tries to interpret such sentence at face value, it means like just looking at the meaning shallowly without going into the without having a thorough investigation, the actual meaning might be missed. Some who misinterpret this sentence argue that an uddesika chaitya However, interpreting the sentence this way contradicts the background story. Venerable Ananda asked the Buddha about the Chaityas, because according to the background story, Venerable Ananda asked the Chaitya about the Chaityas with the intention of providing a physical Chaitya for devotees visiting Jetavanarama to worship. So that was his purpose. So he was asking Chaityas about a monument or physical object that we can keep in Jetavana. So Chaitya for devotees visiting Jetavanarama to worship. If someone is asked about an object of worship and responds by mentioning something that is not a physical object, it would be akin to saying, this is a Sinhalese phrase that Mahathera has given, I have coconut in my bag. When asked, where are you going? He says, so what he's asking, where are you going? He says, what is in your bag? So the answer is irrelevant to the question. So such an answer is irrelevant and without substance, without any essence. The Buddha, being a wise teacher, would not have provided an answer that lacks essence. If an uddesika chaitya were merely the contemplation of Buddha's qualities and not a physical object that could be worshipped, the Buddha would have only mentioned the saririk and paribhogika chaityas in his answer and omit any reference to an uddesika chaitya. Because if uddesika chaitya is just a mere contemplation, there's no purpose of saying or naming it as a chaitya. The fact that he included an uddesika chaitya shows that it is a physical object that can be venerated. Therefore, interpreting an uddesika chaitya as something non-physical contradicts the background story. Then he goes to the definition of chaitya. This is also very important. The term chaitya is defined in the commentary on the Nidikanda Sutta as follows. Chaitabban chaitiyang pujetabbanti uttang hoti. This means that the chaitya is something that should be respected or honored. Something, some physical thing. It is not possible to call something that is not an object, not a physical object, object of veneration, a chaitya. If it is not a physical thing, you cannot call it a chaitya, object of veneration. Mere contemplation of the Buddha's attributes, which cannot be presented as something to be worshipped, cannot be a chaitya. Considering uddesika chaitya as non-physical does not align with the definition of the word chaitya. Obviously, it doesn't align with the definition as well. It says something that can be respected, because mere contemplation is not a thing that can be respected. The term matches its definition only when the Uddesika Chetya is considered a physical object. The following is how the three types of Chetyas are defined in the commentary of the Nidikanda Sutta. Tam panetang Chetyang Tividang Hoti. I'll go to the translation. I have given the translation actually. Pariboga Chetyang, Uddesika Chetyang, Uddisaka Chetyang, Dhatu Chetyanti, Tatta Bodhirukko Pariboga Chetyang, Buddha Patima Uddesika Chetyang, Dhatu Gabba Tupa, Sadatuka, Dhatuka Chetyang. So this is how it's been translated. Chetya is threefold as Pariboga Chetya, Uddisaka Chetya, and Dhatu Chetya. Out of them, the Bodhi tree is the Pariboga Chetya. A Buddha statue is an Uddesika Chetya. Stupas that have a relic chamber enshrined with relics is a Saririka Chetya. The phrase Buddha Patima Uddesika Chetyang clearly indicates that a Buddha statue is an Uddesika Chetya. This is how the commentators have explained this. Both the Jataka commentary and the Kuddaka Pata commentary were written by the same author, who would not contradict himself by presenting different information in different places. Since the Kuddaka Pata commentary explicitly states that a Buddha statue is an Uddesika Chetya, the phrase Uddesikang Avattukang must be understood to mean that an Uddesika Chetya is a physical object that can be worshipped. So Uddesika Chetya is a physical object that doesn't contain relics or anything that the Buddha has used. The phrase Uddesikang Avattukang signifies that there is no Saririka or Paribogika object within an Uddesika Chetya. If an Uddesika Chetya were not a physical object, the Pali term would be Uddesikang Avattu, not Avattukang, Avattu, rather than Uddesikang Avattukang. So the ones who know Pali understand this meaning. If Uddesika Chetya was not a physical object, the Pali would be Uddesikang Avattu. Neuter gender nominative case referring to a non-physical object. But Uddesikang Avattukam means it is an object that doesn't contain any of the Vattu. What are the Vattus? Relics or Paribogika objects. It's a Bahubihi Samasa. An object becomes a Saririka. Now this is the point. This is another important point. An object becomes a Saririka Chetya by being a part of the Buddha's body, obviously. It becomes a Paribogika Chetya by being an item used by the Buddha. An object is regarded as an Uddesika Chetya when it is respected and honored as representing the Buddha's body or related attributes. If we consider this as, for example, a Buddha statue, for instance. For example, this is a Buddha statue. We consider this is, by considering that this is the Buddha, it becomes a Uddesika Chetya. This idea is conveyed through the phrase Mamayana Mattameva, which emphasizes the significance of consideration and respect. By respecting or considering it as a Buddha statue, a Buddha's thing, something resembling the Buddha, it becomes an Uddesika Chetya. It is unreasonable to believe that mere consideration with respect constitutes a Chetya. Mere consideration is a mental activity. It cannot be a Chetya actually. Such an interpretation would lead to confusion. If Mamayana were considered a Chetya, paying respect to the Chetya would mean paying respect to one's own mind. This interpretation is clearly not practical, because if you consider Uddesika Chetya is your own consideration, how could one pay respect? Because Chetya is something that could be respected. So you should be respecting your own mind. So it doesn't make sense. To pay respect to the Buddha who has attained Parinibbana, one must honor either a Saririka Chetya, Paribogika Chetya, or an Uddesika Chetya. By doing so, the Buddha is respected. If none of these Chetyas are available, it is still appropriate to pay respect to the Buddha at any place. You just can pay respect thinking about him. Merits can be accumulated by paying respect to the Buddha even in the absence of a physical Chetya. Because of this formula, this process, you can pay respect to the Buddha even at the absence of a Chetya. Chetya means even at the absence of a Buddha statue. But in the next questions, we will talk about why it is important, what is the importance of a Buddha statue, and What are the other things that can be a Uddesika Chaitya? And why do we pay respect to Buddha statues? Because it gives us that feeling. That's very useful to us. That was the main reason that we must pay respect to Buddha statue. And it is a very good assistance for us to get the idea of the Buddha into our mind. So that will empower or strengthen our kusala and gives us great results. And also there'll be some interesting topics. Why did he chose to plant a Bodhi tree instead of some other object in the Jetavana Vihara? So why didn't Buddha instruct to make a statue? Someone can ask the question. So sometimes there are misinterpretations about certain words. So when did this tradition of making statues began? Did all the ancient teachers unanimously agreed on this statue worshipping? By respecting which Chaitya, paying which Chaitya is more, one can gain more benefits. Do the actual relics of the Buddha play? How do we recognize Buddha's relics? Do they show merits, miracles, and so forth? And in future lessons, we'll also be discussing how to make a Sangika Dana. Can a Sangika Dana be made in front of few monks? Do we need a specific number of monks? And what to do with the Sangika Dana after you have finished the Sangika Dana, because after monks have left. So how to deal with this food, to whom it belongs to. So most of these questions have been asked. So if someone pays respect to devas, for example, deities, do they lose their Buddhisthood or disciplehood by merely paying respect to devas and so forth? So these kind of very interesting topics. So how to deal with astrology in Buddhism? How do we manage it? Is it in line with the Buddha's teachings or not? And many of these questions will be discussed, and it will be an interesting journey that we'll be treading upon. And hope you enjoy the class. And we talked two questions. Did the Buddha make a rule or request that his disciples must make Buddha statues of him and worship them? Obviously not. Obviously not. Then how can one respect and venerate to Buddha who has attained parinibbana? Right? So this is the mechanism behind it, the Abhidhamma explanation. And then there are three objects: Saririka, Paribhogika, and Uddesika. And Mahathera was referring to an argument that was existing of his time, that Uddesika Chaitya is a Buddha statue. So the Buddha statues or any monument that resembles the Buddha is allowed to be respected. So we are not just respecting the clay or the material out of which it is made, because in the next question we'll discuss how Thera was able to, in one of his past lives, pay respect to a heap of sand that was made like a stupa, and how he could gain the great merit of attaining Arahantship one day. So yes, I conclude the lecture. So today we discuss only two questions. We have 98 questions to discuss, and hope it will be, in some days we'll be able to cover 5-6 questions, because the second question, the answer was quite long, and I also had to explain some Abhidhamma behind it. So some days we'll be able to cover 5-6 questions per day. So hopefully we'll be able to finish the entire book. So I conclude the lecture, giving you the opportunity to ask the questions.
Now it's time for questions, and if you have any, please press the raise hand button and to ask. Thank you. Swaminathan, there is a question has been sent to the inbox.
Okay, so you can read it out.
Yeah, it has been sent to the, yeah, okay. So I think you have already explained, but still I asked Swaminathan, say, why did Buddha preach to pay homage to stupas and Bodhi tree?
Because they resemble, they are just signs. Yes, they are just signs, and Bodhi trees, we'll talk about that. Why he chose to plant a Bodhi tree? Because we are actually when we go into the tradition, we have two ways of paying respect to the Bodhi tree. That's something I will discuss in a future lecture. So you can you are paying respect to the Buddha because it signifies, or it refers to the Buddha. And later on, we also pay respect to the Bodhi tree as well, because it is something being used by the Buddha, and it's something is related to the Buddha. And Chaityas, pagodas, because they are enshrined with Buddha's relics. So obviously, if we can pay respect to the Buddha's body, any body part is obviously deserves veneration. Then Buddha statues are just signs referring to him. For example, even there is no sign, we can just pay respect to the Buddha thinking with our mind. But the benefit of having a Buddha statue is you can get that feeling of his presence. That's the point. So even while we are respecting, that's why I explained in the Abhidhamma point, in terms of the Abhidhamma. So when we are paying, for example, there is no Buddha statue here. Yeah, there's one behind actually. So there's no Buddha statue in front. So if I pay respect to the Buddha, looking at the thin air, so I'm still referring to the Buddha with my mind. So I'm getting the merits of paying respect to the Buddha. But when I have a Buddha statue in front of me, I have the sense of his presence. Still, I'm referring to the past Buddha who has passed away. So I have that sense of presence. When there's a pagoda, we have so it's very easy for most of the people to have that feeling. So that's why even you can pay respect to the Buddha without any statue. The benefit of having one is that you get that sense, you get that feeling. And if the Buddha statue was made very nicely, they will not resemble to the Buddha at all, obviously, because none of us have seen. We don't know what was his actual features were. We don't know that. So therefore, they cannot be the same as the Buddha. But anyway, because even we are paying respect to the Buddha with closed eyes, we are getting a certain mental image which is not accurate with the actual Buddha. So still we get the merits because we are referring to him. So even through a Buddha statue, by respect to the Buddha statue, we are referring to him. We are referring to him. So that's the point here. So Buddha has, according to the commentaries, and also Buddha has said in Mahaparinibbana Sutta, these Buddhas, Pacceka Buddhas, Arahants, and Chakravartis deserve. They are two paraha puggala. Two paraha means they are worthy of getting stupas, monuments built for them, and people who respect these monuments would accumulate great merit that is beneficial for them throughout the samsara.
Bhante, there is another question from Mr. Nandana. You can proceed with your question.
Saminansa, my question is there any, in this lecture, once it is mentioned about Chitta Nimitta, I want to know whether there is any difference between Chitta Nimitta and Sankhara Nimitta.
Sankhara Nimitta, what did you mean by Sankhara? Are you referring to Sankhara Nimitta in Vipassana or what?
No, Saminansa, I have heard that word somewhere. I want to know whether there is any difference or similarity between Chitta Nimitta and Sankhara Nimitta.
Yeah, it is like this. Sankhara Nimitta has two meanings, and this has no relationship with this. But now it's like this. There are actually two meanings in it, and you can create another third meaning as well. Sankhara Nimitta in some context refer to the Sankhara themselves. Sankhara Nimitta are the Sankharas. For example, in the Bhaitupattana Jnana, yogi is asked to contemplate as Sankhara Nimittang Bhayang. Uppado Bhayang Nimittang Bhayang. Nimitta is Sankharas. Sankharas are the Nimittas. Sankhara means Sankhara Nimitta, they are identical. And when it comes to Animitta Anupassana or Animitta Vimokha, Sankhara Nimitta of a Sankhara is a quality that enables us to differentiate it from one Sankhara. Every Sankhara has its own Nimitta. It's one kind of individual property in it, which is a unique property that enables us to differentiate. For example, if you take two identical papers, we'll still have, they contain their some identity, unique identity. That unique identity, its scope can be various. So that quality that a sankhara possesses is called sankhara nimittas. In the name sankhara nimitta. So in some places, sankhara itself is called sankhara nimitta, and some places it's an attribute that the sankhara possesses. Then when you are in contemplating vipassana, you focus on sankharas, and you have a certain mental image because you are not able to see the sankharas as they are. For example, none of us will be able to see the rising and falling of a one chittakana. So, but we'll also be seeing, always be seeing some lineage of chittas and so forth. So therefore, the way the sankhara appears to our mind in vipassana meditation can also be called sankhara nimitta. That is a term that you can construct. But the actual true meanings of sankhara nimitta, in one place it refers to the sankhara themselves, sankharas themselves, and also an attribute of the sankhara.
Sainasi, is it correct if I understand something like this?
I cannot hear you. Your voice was breaking.
Hardness is a sankhara, patavi, and it like this sankhara. Sainasi, is it clear now?
I couldn't hear your question. Patavi, I just heard Patavi only.
Sainasi, is it correct if I understand like this? Patavi is a sankhara. If I understand something, hardness is a sankhara. If I understand it like this, it's a hardness of an iron bar and hardness of a pot, clay pot. Is that the difference between two sankhara? Is that the sankhara nimitta?
That is one type of a sankhara nimitta, yes. Yes, correct.
Thank you very much, Sainasi.
I think next is Mrs. Kumari Nelundani. Can you proceed with your question, please? Kumari, you can talk now. Bandi, can I ask another question because it has been sent to an inbox? So there is a question says many people criticize material offerings, and which is amisa, saying not to do them, and as only practice of Dhamma leads to the path of Nibbana. And asking Bande, could you kindly clarify this matter?
What do you mean by material offerings? Is it meaning like, for example,
Maybe Amisa Puja Samnasa.
Amisa Puja, Amisa means sometimes we do offer material things to poor people, right? Which is a dan. I think no one would criticize that. So it's also a material offering. Then I think most of the people would ask the question why you are offering things to the Buddha. That question is already will be discussed in these lectures. If you are offering the thing to the Buddha while he was alive, yes, that's allowable, right? That's obvious. And the question that arises is while we are making material offerings to the Buddha who has passed away. For that, we have to go into the fundamentals of Theravada teachings. For example, in order for how could an offering, what are the factors that fulfill the offerings, even while the person is alive or not? Even while the person is alive. For example, if I'm making a dedication to the Buddha, so I'm making it in front of him. Okay, he used it. He took it and he ate it, for example, consumed it. Now I I dedicate this food to the Buddha while he's not there. He is coming now. I'm unable to. He's coming to the house, so to our place, but I'm so busy that I have to leave the place. So I dedicate this to him and leave. Right? He comes and consumes it. Okay. Then I dedicate this to the Buddha, but it happened that he had another meal, for example. I already dedicated it. So am I getting the merits for my dedication? That's the obvious question. Even though he didn't consume it. Seems yes, because I have dedicated it. because the dana is not completed just because someone has consumed it. It's completed because of two factors. It has to be something that belongs to me. That's why I'm able to dedicate it, to offer it. And I haven't given up that. I have dedicated it to somebody. It's something that belongs to me, the offering, the thing that is being offered. And I dedicate it to someone. I just relinquish it on behalf of someone, for someone. With these two factors, the offering is completed. Now imagine this scenario. Imagine this scenario. Now Buddha is living in the Jetavana monastery. I can dedicate it even from here. For example, I can say this. I can say go and give this to Buddha. Though then he offers it to him. I can say it is already given to the Buddha. Go and offer it. So when am I going to get the merits? Because this is my offering. I'm giving up because I may go and sleep afterwards. So while he's offering the thing to the Buddha, so my offering is completed when I made this offering. So the next question that can arise is, now I'm going to offer this to an arahant. Imagine arahant, and he is in that monastery, and I offered it at 1 p.m. 1 p.m. Now, unfortunately, without me being aware of that, that person, the arahant, has attained parinibbana at 12:30 p.m. So would I be getting the merits of my donation or not? The answer is yes. The answer is yes. Because I have made the offering, I made the dedication. Unfortunately, he is not going to use it. And he has passed away. So according to Theravada teachings, making material offerings to a passed away Buddha, we'll be discussing this in length in our coming lectures. So I'll leave this for, I'll just restrain myself for this answer, for this amount of answer. And so it doesn't matter the person is alive or not, according to Theravada fundamentals. One can argue on this. I'm not saying this because if someone is arguing about the karma, then this is not the way to answer him. If someone is arguing about the karma. So if someone believes in karma, if someone respects Theravada fundamentals, then you have to always obviously ask the question, when is the dana is coming? Because why did I say this so frank and directly? No one is going to reject offering meals to the Buddha who is alive, right? No one is going to reject offering meals to poor people who are going to benefit out of it. No one is going to reject that. So only thing they would be rejecting is making offerings to Buddha who has passed away. So that's why I made the fundamentals saying that. So whether his presence or livingness, I would say livingness, the nature of living, doesn't matter in the end. According to the fundamentals. So should we make offerings or practice? Making offerings is a part of practice. And I think most of the ones who are making this, if this question was raised, ones would not say that if you are making offerings to the poor, they would not say that you go and practice without making offerings. Then you are having a huge problem of the basic human qualities. Dana is something that has been praised by the Buddha, and also it's obvious thing that we should be doing. And so offerings, then one would be asking, doing pujas and doing vandanas and all this. We can talk about that later in length. These are all part of the practice. So what matters in the end is having a wholesome mind all the time. So when you are paying respect to the now, for example, if someone is contemplating the Buddha Anusati as a meditation subject, you can gain a concentration out of it, and you can follow vipassana and attain liberation. So while we are doing a chanting, paying respect to the Buddha, what are we saying? We are saying nothing other than the Buddha's qualities. So if you are meditating as Buddha, so Buddha Anusati is a meditation subject mentioned in the scriptures, in the suttas by the Buddha himself. And if you are reciting it in front of a Buddha statue, it's a part of meditation. Because even you are close to your eyes and keep on contemplating the Buddha's qualities, and you are paying respect to Buddha statue, still you are reciting the Buddha's qualities. So if you know the meaning, so there's nothing much difference in it. Because meditation can be in the initial stages, you can do the meditation by reciting. For example, there are stories of ancient monks who attain arahantship, attain Maggapala actually, during the initial stage of recitation of the meditation subjects. So we'll talk about that in detail offering material things is not out of the practice. It's not out of the practice. Yes, he did say in the Parinibbana Sutta, offering flowers doesn't signify the real respect. Yes, obvious. If you are just, it's part of the practice actually, but you are just offering flowers and so forth, but not practicing sila, samadhi, and panya. Yeah, that's just you are doing partial thing, just doing a partial thing. But is it worthy? Is it a waste of making offerings? No, not at all. Because we have ample of stories of ancient Mahatheras, Maha-Arahants, who related to their past lives, saying that he offered these and these flowers, made all these offerings in the past lives, and with the help of that merit, they got into this life and attained arahantship. So if someone says that it's just a statement, doesn't have any validity at all. Offerings signifies is also part of our practice. But if someone just satisfy him or herself just through offerings and without practicing higher practices, that is something needed to be addressed. We would say you can also do some practice rather than only doing these merits. But that if that is the only thing that he or she can do, that's much better than doing nothing. That's much better than doing nothing. So we also have to understand the practicalities, the situations, and all this. Yeah, it's just it has to be addressed in a broader context. But offering material things never contradicts with the Buddha's explanations.
Bhante, have you got any 1 minute? There's another question.
Yeah, go ahead, ask.
Mrs. Kumari Nelumdania, you can proceed with your question. You can submit your question now.
At the beginning, I got this question, but in the middle and at the end, I got the answer for that. But I would like to have a further clarification. I'd heard that by embodying the teaching and leading a mindful without going to the past and future, as you said, compassionate life, Buddhists should honor the Buddha in spirit rather than through physical representations like bodies. But without stupas and...
I beg your pardon, I didn't get the last part. Can you repeat the question again?
Yes, I mean, to honor the Buddha, the best way of honoring the Buddha is in spirit rather than through physical representations like stupas, Buddha statues. But without stupas and statues, isn't it difficult for a person, especially for children who have not reached to the path, to cultivate that mental state? Because I've got first-hand experience with my children. When I have a Buddha statue, it is easy for me to persuade them for that path, even to observe Pansel. But in that case, are these physical representatives very effective in that regard?
Obvious is not only for children. Yes, I hope you have presented your question. So
yes.
It's not only for children, even for adults, even for the ones who have grown up in spirituality. Still when you see a Buddha statue, that's the time that the sense of the Buddha comes into our mind. And it's very easy for us to have that idea. And even you can contemplate looking at the Buddha statues and start to do the contemplation of Buddha's attributes. So the physical representation is very helpful to our mind. It's not only for children. So yes, making pagodas have been instructed by the Buddha. That means pagodas means monuments. Instructed means he says that the Tathagata deserves that. And by paying respect to these monuments, build for them. For 4 types of people: Buddha, Pacceka Buddhas, Arahants, and Chakravarti Raja, the universal monarchs. Many people accumulate great merits and will be born in good destinations. So yeah, it's something that is very useful and a custom that has been followed for traditions, and it's just what matters to us is how do we consider about it? How do we consider about it? And Bodhi tree is also a representation of the Buddha, and the relics themselves are the part of the Buddha. So if you, for example, if you happen to now imagine if someone is capable of getting the Jesus Christ cloth that he wore while he was being crucified, something that is so valuable for the Christian people. It's something that they would really honor. Even, for example, the one if you find a king who served the country, if you find his crown, or if you happen to find his sword, that would be something very valuable for the ones who really respect him. So that the honor, the respect, it can evoke that feeling. So in the same way, if we can find something that was used by the Buddha himself, that would evoke that sense about the Buddha, and we can easily, because if someone can pay respect to the Buddha without a monument, the ones who are practicing would pay respect to the Buddha, right? Before sitting, so they are paying respect to the Buddha without a monument. What is the philosophy behind that? Our mind is capable of referring to some object, some reality that existed now, which is not existing at the moment. So what we are doing through a Buddha statue is referring to that person. We are not paying respect to this statue. We are paying respect to the Buddha, whom we refer through this statue. That's what matters. So otherwise, the statue is just a material, a heap of material, stones or sand or whatever the mixture is. It has no value at all. It has some value in terms of commerciality, but as a commodity, but it's not in the sense of deserving veneration. Therefore, but we refer to that actual person who existed 2,500 years ago through this material thing. If there is no material thing, we are referring to him directly. Okay. So then what the obvious question that arises, when it is easier for you to refer to him? Is it just through the mind or just looking at a Buddha statue? If someone says it's easy for me to refer to the Buddha without looking at a Buddha statue, it's up to him or her. But if for most of us, it's obviously, even for myself, if you have a very nicely made Buddha statue, the feeling that arises in me is quite different when I'm making respecting gesture to him in my own.
That's a nice answer. I got your point.
Bhante, I think, well, that's all for today. And now it's finished, some answer.
Okay, then
Hello.
thank you for listening.
Bhante,
Yes.
Bhante, can I ask you a question? Maybe it's nothing to do with Dhamma Vinicchaya lesson. This question is bothering me quite some time. I'm trying to get an answer. Can you hear me, Bhante?
Yes, I can hear you.
This is something, when Arahat become Arhat, they remove all the klesha, bad klesha. But when Buddha become Buddha, what is the difference between Buddha and Arahat when they attain Nirvana? Is it something to do with Vasana? And can you elaborate on the Vasana? I'm not clear on Vasana.
The Nibbana they attain, there is no difference in it. It's the same Nibbana. The Nibbana is just one. It's a single reality. And it's not the singularity which is discussed in Upanishad. This single reality is the state of non-arising of suffering. So in terms of the Nibbana they have experienced, or they have attained, they're not in Nibbana. The suffering has extinguished, has been, and that there's no difference in it. It's the same. whoever the Buddhas in the past, in the present, or who will attain in future, or even we attain Nibbana one day. So all this is the same Nibbana. The difference between an Arahant and a Buddha lays on few factors. It's not only about Arahant, we have three categories: Buddhas, Pacceka Buddhas, and Arahants. So in order, fundamentally, they have removed all the defilements. It happens from the Sotapannahood, starting from the Sotapanna stage. At the stage of Arahanthood, you remove all the defilements that can cause a rebirth. If the defilements of rebirth are removed, there cannot be any rebirth again. So it means the cessation of suffering. The Nama-Rupa process is happening. Suffering is about to come. A lot of suffering is about to come, which has not arisen yet. As long as the causes are there, the suffering is supposed to arise. So why these we are not free from this suffering, even though it has not arisen yet, because the cause is there. Because anytime we die, we are supposed to be born again. That is called the non-arisen suffering. If an asteroid is coming towards the sea and is about to cause a tsunami, even before it has hit the earth, we still take precautions and run away. Why is that? We are afraid of we fear the non-arisen tsunami. Why do we fear non-arisen tsunami? Because the cause is coming, the asteroid is coming. If the asteroid is destroyed, then we'll be relief, we'll relax, because okay, the cause is gone, the tsunami is not going to come. So the suffering which is going to come is something very special in our lives, because as long as the causes are there, even though the suffering has not arisen, it is about to come. So what happens to an Arahant is they remove the defilements that can cause this rebirth.
Yeah.
So there are defilements. So they remove the defilement. It starts from the stages of Sotapannahood. So this, in order to remove the defilements, it can be done by the Chitta wisdom called Maggavihari, the wisdom in the path, which understands or which penetrates the Nibbana and also understands the Four Noble Truths: suffering, cause of suffering, cessation of suffering, and the path leading to the cessation of suffering, which we call the Four Noble Truths, Chatu Arya Satya. In Sinhalese, we'll call Chaturari Satya. So these Four Noble Truths are understood by the Maggavihari, is a wisdom, and this wisdom is developed through relentless practice for years, throughout many lives actually. Then what happens? This Maggavihari arises in 4 times as Sotapatti Maggavihari, Sakadagami Maggavihari, Anagami Maggavihari, and Arahanta Maggavihari. And Arahanta Maggavihari is so all these 4 are eradicating defilements to some degree, and the Arahanta Maggavihari eradicates what is remnant. It doesn't eradicate all the defilements. It removes what is remnant. So eradication starts with the Sotapannahood. Now, what happens is, so in order to eradicate the defilements, we have to have the wisdom about the Four Noble Truths. So this wisdom, how one is going to get this wisdom? Some people, most of the beings, get this wisdom with the help of someone else, either from the Buddha or a disciple of the Buddha, or through the books and all, whatever. So those ones who gain this wisdom of Four Noble Truths with the help of others and eradicate all the defilements are called Arahants. And some beings, very special ones, are capable of understanding these Four Noble Truths by themselves without the help of someone else. Whenever they are ready, they understand this and eradicate all the defilements, and they are called Pacceka Buddha. They also do it in 4 stages. They also go through Sotapannahood, Sakadagamihood, Anagamihood, and Arahanthood. And the difference between a Arahant and a Pacceka Buddha is they have done it by themselves, which is a great margin of difference. Because even Venerable Sariputta would not be able to understand it by himself unless Venerable Assaji or any other disciple or Buddha had preached him the Dhamma. So Pacceka Buddhas are capable of doing it by themselves. So that is a huge difference. So they are far more greater than noble disciples like us. Because in order to do that, penetrate and understand the noble truths by themselves is not an easy task. It's not something very simple. So, and with that wisdom, when they become Arahants, Arahant is Pacceka Buddhas, you can call them Arahants as well. But when they become Pacceka Buddha, their wisdom, their blossoming of wisdom is vaster, much greater than that of Arahant, because obviously they accumulated great paramis and merits in order to get that capacity of understanding the Four Noble Truths by themselves. And then there's another, but even though they are capable of understanding by themselves, they are not capable of preaching it to others, putting it into words. So they are self-enlightened persons, but unable to lead others toward the liberation. It's not that they don't have the compassion, they don't have the capacity to bring forth this experience and put it into words so that others could liberate, listen to it. Then there's another type of beings who understand these Four Noble Truths by themselves, and whose wisdom is so vast, much more greater than Pacceka Buddha. So they are able to put this understanding into words and also show the path and also help the others to come to eradicate the defilements or understand the noble truths that they have understood. But those persons have a full amount of wisdom, so they are fully enlightened. We call they are fully enlightened. But even they go through these four stages. Bodhisattva under the Bodhi tree became a Sotapanna first, then became a Sakadagami, Anagami, and then finally a Arahant. His Arahanthood at the moment of Arahanthood is eradicating all the remnant ones. But he is a Sammasambuddha because he did it by himself and he is capable of teaching it to others. So at the stage of Arahanthood of a Pacceka Buddha, he is called a Pacceka Buddha because he did it by himself. But the others are called normal Arahants because they are doing it with the help of others. So that is the main difference between them. Then when they eradicate the defilements, there is something called defilements that can cause the birth, which we call the defilements, kilesas. So their latent stage is called anusaya, or sometimes we call it appahina avatha. Appahina means uneradicated. It's not a normal, not a proper word actually, English word. Normally we use the word uneradicated. It's a constructed word. Kilesa that are not eradicated. I may use that word uneradicated for the convenience of the usage. So these uneradicated defilements, not only the uneradicated defilements, they are based on them. We normally develop a certain habitual patterns, which we call vasana. Similarity is now when an elephant is bound with the chains for a longer period, he is unable to stretch his legs. So he walks in a certain way, not like a wild elephant. But if he was chained for many years, and even after the chains have been removed, he'll be having that same way of walking, even though he could stretch his legs very well. But that is the habit that he has. His body and everything has adapted to this old lifestyle. Even though chains are removed, he'll be behaving the same way. So likewise, these defilements cause certain habitual tendencies within us. Even we have it at the moment. So eradication at the moment of Magga Jnana, when you eradicate the defilements, they eradicate the defilements, but the habitual things are not fully eradicated. So when you look into the literature, it seems like certain arahants do eradicate these habitual defilements, habitual habits caused by the defilements, which we call vasana, not in the Sinhalese sense of vasana. This is like these are the defilements that have been made to live in our mind stream for a longer period, not the luck. So these vasana kilesas, some arahants, it seems, according to the literature, they are eradicating to some extent, not entirely. So Sariputta would also eradicate to some extent. But surely every arahant, Pacceka Buddha and Sammasambuddha, eradicate the defilements which can cause the rebirth. They are completely gone. But that habits that were caused, the habitual tendencies in the mind due to the defilements cannot be eradicated entirely by arahants. And also by Pacceka Buddhas, those things cannot be eradicated. So Sammasambuddhas, when they eradicate the defilement, they completely eradicate the entire kilesas together with the vasana tendencies. So what happens is, the next point is, now defilements are the next aspect is the defilements. So that's the difference of them. Defilements are the obstacles for the wisdom. So when we have strong defilements, we are unable to choose the correct thing. So that's why sometimes when you have hatred, when we have attachment, so we are unable to make a proper judgment. So that's obvious in our day-to-day lives, right? Even when we are making certain decisions in our life, maybe social or economical, or in terms of the country or whatever, we are more inclined, we are unable to make a proper decision. If we have a grudge towards someone, if we have attachment towards someone, so we'll be biased based on our things, right? So normally these things happens in elections, these things happens in our marriages and all these. So we are influenced by our defilements most of the time. So, so defilements hinder our wisdom. So more the defilements are lessened, wisdom starts to blossom. If it is removed, the wisdom can come into its full capacity. It's not only the defilements that are hindering our wisdom, the vasana, the vasana kilesas are also hindering, are also obstacles. So when the arahants have completely eradicated the defilements, so their wisdom has blossomed to a great extent, but still it has a resistance by the vasana defilements, vasana kilesas. So more the resistance is lower, the blossoming of wisdom is greater. So Pacceka Buddhas still have some amount of vasana, but they have a greater wisdom, but they are not, their wisdom has not reached the 100% efficacy. So, but with the Samma Sambuddha, when he eradicates the defilements, he removes with the defilements together with the tendencies, vasana tendencies. So there's no other obstacle in his mind, in his mind stream for his wisdom. So it reaches the highest level, and that reaching or culmination of wisdom is called the Sabbanyuta Jnana, the omniscience. So this is the next difference between Pacceka Buddha, Arahant, and Samma Sambuddha. But all of them, the liberation they have attained, there's no difference at all because they all attain the same liberation.
Thanks, Bhante. Perfect answer. Thank you so much.
So shall we conclude then?
Yes, Swaminathan. It's all for today now.
So now it's time to transfer the merits and also conclude our session. On this day, the Dhamma sermon is kindly sponsored by Udyani Unantenna, Vishwa Unantenna, Trishala Unantenna, Navik, Thanidi, Anupama Unantenna, all Unantenna, Udyani Unantenna, Vishwa Unantenna, Trishala Unantenna, Navik Unantenna, Thanidi Unantenna, Anupama Unantenna, Samara Divakara from Anupam Unantenna, Samana Divakara from Switzerland. So these are the ones who sponsored this Dhamma talk. The main purpose of this offering of Dhamma is to transfer merits to the late Shanti Mavis. No? I hope I'm pronouncing correctly.
Shanti
Mavis.
Mavis. Okay. That's okay.
Shanti Mavis Unantenna, our beloved mother, the late grandparents, the late Nihal Mami, and the late Toti Ammis, right? Okay. Toti Ammis and Daya Amma. Toti Ammis and Daya Amma who cared for us since childhood. So we share this merit of Dhammadana, of giving the chance for many to listen to the Dhamma. So may these late deceased ones, Shanti Mavis Unantenna, their grandparents, Nihal Mami, Toti Ammis and Daya Amma, who have already passed away, may they enjoy these merits done by their children and their beloved ones, and may they be free from suffering if in case they are suffering, or if they are already in happiness, may the happiness enhances by this sharing of merit. And may they all rejoice in this merit. The purpose of this Dhamma suffering is for the accumulation of merits from this noble Dhamma offering to be transferred to all beings. May all beings rejoice on this merit. And may all devas rejoice in these transferred merits, and may all of them enjoy the divine pleasures and one day finally attain the liberation. May all the noble monks, including Venerable Maggavihari, preach of the Dhamma sermon, who have blessed us with the Dhamma, rejoice in these transferred merits. Yes, I do enjoy your sharing. We humbly transfer the merits of this Dhamma sermon to Venerable Buddha Rakkita Thera, who graciously supported us in making this Dhamma offering possible. So may he be happy and may he have a very fruitful sasana life, and may Venerable be able to attain all his wishes. May these merits also be transferred to Mr. Vajira Ranasinghe of Switzerland, who provided Zoom app for the Dhamma sermon, and to his late beloved father. And Vajira have been supporting the Dhamma sermons by providing this app, and may he be also gain all the benefits in mundane and spiritual aspects. And also may his father rejoice on this merit, and may he be happy and attain the Nibbana soon. May all those who attended today's Dhamma sermon to listen to the preachings also rejoice in these transferred merits. And finally, the ones who organized this talk, Udyani Unantenna, Vishwa Unantenna, Trishala Unantana, Navi Kunantana, Tanidi Unantana, Anupam Unantana, Samardivarkara. May all of you be able to, with this merit, may all of you be able to attain the correct view throughout the entire samsara and to associate, and will be fortunate to associate good friends who would lead you towards the liberation soon. And also the ones who join the talk and listen to the talk, may this merit be a helpful assistance for you to grow in Dhamma and to be born in blissful states, and also to attain the Nibbana soon. And also special thanks to Mrs. Udyani Unantana and Vishu Unantana for organizing these events, and Prasad Disoisa for this recording and broadcasting, and all the ones who have joined. So we'll transfer the merits by reciting the gathas. Idang vo nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idang vo nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idang vo nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Akasattha cha bhummattha devanaga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chiran rakkantu sambuddha sasanam. Akasattha cha bhummattha devanaga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chiran rakkantu sambuddha desanang. Akasattha cha bhummattha devanaga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chiran rakkantu sambuddha savakang. Chiran rakkantu tvam sada imina punya kammena mame bala samagamo. Satan samagamo hotu yava nibbana pattaya imina punya kammena mame bala samagamo. Satan samagamo hotu yava nibbana pattaya imina punya kammena mame bala samagamo. Satan samagamo hotu yava nibbana pattaya idamme punya kammang asavakkaya vahang hotu. Idamme punya kammang asavakkaya vahang hotu. Idamme punya kammang asavakkaya vahang hotu. Sabba dukkha pamunchatu.
Reverend Bhante, with your permission, I wish to share the merits with you, Bhante. And may the merits we have gathered through almsgiving, observing precepts and meditation, and listening to the Dhamma be shared with the Venerable Bhante by the power of the Sublime Buddha, by the power of the Sublime Dhamma, and by the power of the Sublime Sangha, and by the power of the meritorious deeds we have accumulated. And may the Venerable Bhante be blessed with good health, free from illness, and attain well-being. May the merits be shared for the realization of the Supreme Dhamma. And with your permission, Reverend Bhante, I wish to pay my respect to you. Okasa Vandami Bhante, Mayankatang Samina Anumodi Tabbang, Samina Katang Punya Mayanda Tabbang, Sadhu Sadhu Anumodami, Okasa Dwaratena, Katan Sabbang Achang Kamatame Bhante, Okasa Kamami Bhante, Dutiyampi Okasa Kamami Bhante, Tatyampi Okasa Kamami Bhante, Sadhu, Sadhu, Sadhu. Triple Gem bless you, Swaminasa.